So, what's it like living in the Philippines as a foreigner? Well, I have to say, pretty good. You know, I'm from the UK, so, you know, in the winter it's cold and wet. Philippines, not so. Yes, it does get wet, but, you know, nice temperature all year round. There's a few things I want to cover in this video, and one of them is the language barrier, or lack of. As you know, I mean, if you're a foreigner living in the Philippines, then you'll know all about it, but maybe you're a foreigner who is thinking about going to the Philippines and living there. Well, that's one of the beautiful things about the Philippines, is the language barrier doesn't exist, because you know, the majority of people speak English. So yeah, maybe with the older generation you might struggle a wee bit, but one thing I wanted to mention was, you know, it's one thing going there and being able to communicate, but why not learn the language? You know, Tagalog or Filipino, I think it's called. The national language is called Filipino now. But I actually bought a book with some CDs, and it's not as difficult as you think. When I was in France, I learned the language. I learned French, and you know what? It makes a huge difference. You know, being able to communicate. But you know, most people speak English anyway. If you go to the Philippines, just remember, you know, you are a guest in their country. There's been, you know, a lot of foreigners who moved to Cebu or Dumaguete, that sort of area. You know, and I tend to shy away from too many foreigners, too many expats. It's just something that I've always done over the years. I find it's better having less. The one thing I would say is, if you're in the province, depending on the province, you might find there's not many foreigners there, like in our province. We are in Albay. There's very few foreigners. I think, if I was going to guess, I would say maybe around 20 to 25 that I know of. You know, there is a Facebook group, but I don't bother with it. But I've seen it before, and our old neighbour was actually a foreigner before we moved to our current house. So we've been in the Philippines for about 5 years. We moved from Malaysia, and my wife's Filipina. We spent a nice 8 years in Malaysia, but you know, 5 years ago we moved to the Philippines, and we were renting at first before we bought the house. So, you know, if you're thinking about moving to the Philippines, the food is something a bit different. But if you like Asian food, then you'll be fine. But it's quite a bit different to other countries in Southeast Asia. You know, I lived in Indonesia, Singapore, Malaysia. Filipino food is different, but I like it. You know, there's a lot of choices, and you know, at the end of the day, you will be able to get Western food style wherever you go. I would imagine in most provinces you'll be able to get it. Certainly in our province, you know, you get Western food. You got your usual fast food restaurants, McDonald's and all that. But even restaurants. Some restaurants have steaks. You can get the other thing is healthcare. You know, if you're worried about healthcare, I wouldn't be too worried. I had an experience in the hospital where we are, and I've only got good things to say about it. You know, it wasn't a major operation or anything like that. All it was I had some kidney problems, and they managed to rectify it. So if it's healthcare you're worried about, just check, make sure you know where you are. We live right next to a hospital, which is handy. So, you know, I've heard a lot of bad reports about healthcare in some of the provinces, but I've only got good things to say for ours. You know, the culture in the Philippines is different. It's different to even in Southeast Asia. The culture is different, but I like it. You know, the people are very respectful, and when you get older, that's important. I've never had any issues. You know, very polite, respectful, as I am. You know, if you're nice to people, they'll be nice back to you. So I don't have any. I mean, yeah, you will get some negatives, but if you're a foreigner and you've got an income, be it like an online business, or if you're retired and you've got a pension, then you won't have any issues. And you know, when you go, if you go, talk to people. You know, I like to mingle with the locals. It's the same in any country I've been in. It's nice to get involved. So, you know, you talk to people and they'll talk back to you. Don't be shy. Obviously, if you've got a pension and you're a foreigner, then you'll be able to live comfortably. You know, a lot of people in the Philippines, there is poverty. Of course there is. You know, I've lived in countries where there's been a lot of poverty. Nigeria, even Malaysia, Indonesia, but it was pretty bad in Manila. The first time I went to Manila all those years ago, you know, whole families living on the street. So, you know, just remember you're going to a place where there is poverty, but I would say safe, especially in the provinces. You know, you're not going to experience any trouble, I don't think. So certainly I've never seen any. It's been great. And when you go, if you can afford it, try to do a wee bit of travel. There's some really nice places to see, you know, Boracay, Palawan, Siargao. Although I wouldn't go to Siargao unless you're a surfer. I found that the beach wasn't fantastic, and you know, a lot of rocks. People go there to surf. It's a surfer's paradise. So not for me, I'm afraid. But Boracay's nice, and where we are on the west coast, north of Sorsogon, beautiful beaches. So travel around if you can. Experience the culture. If you drive, you'll be okay for petrol, gas. The price of gas in the Philippines is about half the price in the UK. It's crazy. You know, we get ripped off in the UK. So you'll find the gas is cheaper. So because I'm one of the few foreigners in Albay, our province, people look at you, you know. It's okay, you know. It's just one of these things, you know. They're not used to foreigners as much as if, you know, if you were in Manila. It's different, of course. But when you go to a province, depending on the province, you know, people will look at you because they're not used to having foreigners there. That's okay, you know. Don't be shy. Talk to people. You're not an alien. I've always found people to be very receptive, and in the Philippines, you know, very, very friendly nation. I've got, you know, sometimes I've got to pinch myself and think, how did the wee boy from Scotland end up in the Philippines? But you can do it. If you want to know about costs, in my previous video, I spoke about the cost of living in the Philippines. So have a look at that if you're interested. So this is the book that I purchased. As you can see, it's quite old, and I did try and learn it some time ago, listening to the CDs that it comes with. But I'm going to make a a new effort to try and learn Tagalog. So I can recommend this book. I remember the last time when I started reading it, I thought, this is okay. The only thing that confuses me is in Tagalog, right? You know, when you talk about the time, you know, if you ask someone the time, it's anong oras na, okay? That's how you ask someone the time. But the problem is when they reply, when they talk about the time on the clock, it's not in Tagalog, it's in Spanish. So that confused me, because when you talk about money, it's in Tagalog, or numbers, it's in Tagalog. But when you talk about the time, it's in Spanish. So I don't know. I mean, I know the Spanish influence is obviously there, but it can be quite confusing at first. Anyway, I'd recommend the book, and you know, when you go there, you'll pick up bits and pieces yourself, definitely. Okay guys, thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.